So during your career, how many sexual assault calls do you think you've been on?
Uh, I would say I got probably at least 2 of those a month.
2 a month. Now, of
Yeah.
all of those, which ones would you suspect were bullshit?
So there's a good number. It's hard for me to give a percentage, but there's a good number that were either bullshit or exaggerated, or it was someone fishing for a way to get someone in trouble, or they were being spiteful in some way. And you can usually tell pretty quick when they keep adding to their story.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. They keep adding to the story. Are you familiar with some of the uniform crime report stats in regards to that kind of shit?
I can't pull it out of my backpack right this second, but I am familiar. I do look at that stuff, and I am familiar with how things are reported.
Now, one of the ways they used to, I guess this is for political correctness,
Hmm.
is they had a one of the columns when the sexual assault thing is they keep track of unfounded.
Yep.
All right. Meaning there's no evidence to support this,
Yep.
but they refuse to call the unfounded false.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really muddy. There's oftentimes with those, there's insufficient evidence to charge for with making a false, or so often with those, it's insufficient evidence to say the crime occurred.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's either the evidence wasn't there, or they're reporting something that they thought was a crime that isn't. Sometimes it's they're deliberately being deceitful and they're trying to get somebody in trouble.
Yeah.
How we find if it's one or the other, it's very difficult, especially since in my state, I can't speak for every state, but in my state, the state's attorneys don't want to touch that stuff. They don't care about it whatsoever. Their reasoning being, if we start punishing people for reporting sexual assault, people will be too scared to come forward to report sexual assault, which
Yeah.
is
But the thing
stupid.
is,
Yeah.
is if they report it falsely, it ruins somebody else's life.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And that does not sit well with me. My own younger brother was once accused of something like this, and it pissed me right off, and nothing happened to the chick that accused him. Luckily, the investigation didn't go too wild, didn't go too far, but even if it doesn't go too far, being accused of that is,
Yeah.
oh,
No,
it's horrific. Yeah.
oh no. I've got guys who watch the show on the regular who have lost jobs
Yeah.
and whole careers because of these accusations.
Absolutely.
Like we have one guy got accused of some bullshit, and he was a mechanical engineer, and he's can't work in that field in his state anymore. So he's
Yep.
got to move somewhere else or or find a different livelihood.
Yeah. And it's a there's an unfair imbalance when it comes to how sexual assault is perceived, how it's reported, how men are basically dismissed if they make a complaint, or they're
Yes.
saying, that probably didn't happen, or you need to man up. But
Yeah,
then we have to believe every woman who makes a complaint.
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's it's so ridiculous. It's become redonkulous, and that's why we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the show. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
If it's wrong and ridiculous, it is redonkulous, and therefore we're going to rip on it.
Yep.
So when you add in the unfounded, you come up with a stat which is really close to 50%.
Hmm.
Yeah, just think about that.
Yeah.
Half.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie, I want half. Come on. But I mean, that is fucking egregious. We need to do something about it because men are killing themselves because of this bullshit.
Yeah. It's a difficult one to tackle, because from the get go, sexual assault is a very difficult crime to investigate. So for a second, if we put a pin in the unfounded ones, if we look at the ones that did turn out to be founded,
Uh-huh.
the amount of work we have to do and the timeliness of it in order to get actual physical evidence that can be presented in court, like they have to report it right away. And we have to gather that evidence right away. And we have to build an airtight case.
Uh-huh.
So, because of how difficult that is, I think a big issue that legislators overcorrect on is they make it too easy to be accused of sexual assault, because they're trying to cast as wide a net as possible, because they feel as if they're not capturing the actual crimes, the actual instances that happen. And that may be the case. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's why the Uniform Crime Report has the dark figure of crime. There's the unreported, there's the ones that don't make the logs. But then,
but you and I both know unreported is more like an educated guess.
oh yeah,
It's like trying
well,
to like,
exactly. We don't have the stats. We can't,
yeah,
because
like
we're not tracking it right. Yeah,
you're trying to write a plan with fairy dust.
exactly.
Yeah.
Good idea, fairy dust.
Yeah. And like, what about the stat that they always use? Like 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 women is going to be raped or sexually assaulted on a college campus.
Yeah. I've never been a campus police officer, but I have gone to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, all respect to anyone who has been in that situation. It's awful. I can't imagine what that might be like, but college students are freaking wild. And they get drunk and they do dumb shit. And there's college students that get drunk and do dumb shit and then have buyer's remorse the next morning, and
Yes.
they make a complaint. And I've had reports like that where the chick got buyer's remorse and then she tried to accuse the dude of sexually assaulting her, and then I found evidence that they were all about it.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it doesn't fly. The fact that people feel as if they can use the police as their get back at somebody or cover up for their own shame is that's something as a society we need to break people of.
I mean,
that ruins people's lives.
Yeah. My daughters are in their 20s. They're going to college.
Yeah.
Right? If that stat was correct, I would literally have both my daughters with a samurai sword, pepper spray, and a 357 Magnum on them everywhere they went.
Give them some claymores for the for their bedroom door. Yeah,
take the entire floor, just gone.
Yeah.
But I mean, just think about that though. These feminists are putting this propaganda out there and scaring the shit out of these young women unnecessarily. Because when you actually look at the actual stat,
yeah,
it's like 0.5%. It's such a minuscule, a small, minuscule number. It's not even really worth mentioning. But they have blown this whole thing out of proportion, and I think they've done it mainly so they can collect money and keep the cash cow moving forward.
I think, and this is I'm getting off my professional experience here. This isn't what I've been educated in necessarily or what my experience is, but this is just my hot take. I think you hear a lot about the victim mentality.
Yes.
And how people want to cultivate that because it gives them attention, or it gives them a platform from which they can live their lives and feel good about who they are. You need one of those victim adjectives. There's no doubt women that are scared shitless by that stuff. But I think there's also women who say, oh yeah, it is hard to be me. It's way harder to be me. And that's like a gloating point for them.
Yes. Yeah. And
that's a self-esteem thing,
Yeah. Well, you and I are both military people, so we understand how the world really works, and probably been experienced to actual tough times. I broke a fingernail, my car didn't start. That's not a big deal.
Oh yeah.
My boyfriend was mean to me, and I didn't get along with my parents. So what?
Yeah.
I think it's like the be all end all of the world. But look, if you want to really experience fucked up shit, get mortared for a year.
Yeah.
Live on one meal every third day. You know, I mean, that
Proportion
sucks.
proportionality. They have no idea how
Yeah.
much worse it could be.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I had to sleep in the rain, in the snow, in the mud, in the
Ooh,
jungle, on rocks in the desert. I mean,
the mud bowls are the best.
yes, they are.
It's like a glove easing you to sleep.
But the thing is they just, the youth of today, they just don't understand that
No,
how the
it's
real world.
so far removed from anything they normally experience. They can't comprehend it. You know.
Well, the way I look at it, and this is my philosophy, is the youth of today live behind the safety of like 4 or 5 fences. Because, you know, if you think about it, you got your city police, you got your county cops, you got the state police, then you have the federal police, and then you have the military. So the average person is walking around in a country that is probably safer than, you know, well, I'm not talking about some of the cities, but for the most part, it is incredibly safe here in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been down to South America.
Oof.
And, you know, doing stuff with the Army. And we'd go out in the town on our off time. We'd have to go in teams of 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go to the bathroom by yourself because they used to stab us in the back while you're taking a piss.
Yep.
I mean, that is fucked up shit. And the average person doesn't seem to understand that. And,
No, and it's it's the media cycle. They want you alarmed and they want to tell you how dangerous it is and how dangerous this is, and that's the whole world they live in. And they've never been outside the U.S. They don't get just how well this country is set up.
mm-hmm. And how many suicide calls do you think you went on?
Oh, so many. God, if I had to put
Are most of them men?
Yes, absolutely. But most of the completed suicides were men. Most of the
Attempts were men.
Yeah, well, not even attempts. The articulations. I'm feeling sad and I don't want to be here anymore. That was usually women. Men usually followed through with it, and most of the time it was alcohol was involved.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But, like that's one of the main reasons I do what I do here is I talk about real world problems, and I don't really do stand up comedy. I do comedy lectures about different subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed because I'm talking about these harsh subjects, making people laugh, that I've got 531 guys in the past 10, 12 years who've come forward and credited my channel and me and Blake with keeping the gun out of their mouth.
Good.
So, I mean, do you have that suicide problem with the police?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, would you say a lot of, like, in my experience, when I was doing my research, 70% of the suicides that I researched had a broken relationship, contact in divorce and family court, and, within 3 to 36 months after it began, they die.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just, I mean, that is also egregious. And I think it's going to get worse with all of these false accusations and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you're instantly going to, get crucified without any evidence, there's a lot of people are like, fuck this, I'm out.
There's been enough high profile instances where it didn't turn out to be what it looked like at face value. And I think the public is finally starting to realize, oh, maybe there's nuance or maybe there's more to a story than what was initially reported.
Yeah. Yeah. And like most people don't seem to understand how painful it is to lose a child.
Yeah.
All right. That is the worst pain a parent can experience in their, meager time on this planet, in my opinion. But they do that to men on the regular 5 days a week, 50 out of 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
They take away a man's children, and that is incredibly painful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, turn them into wage slaves, treat them like second-class citizens, and they literally just go off the rails and wind up killing themselves. It almost got me. I mean, back in like 2000.
Yeah, well, I don't mind telling you, it almost got me too.
Yeah.
My ex-wife kind of blew my life apart randomly one year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Women don't seem to have any kind of mercy.
No. Once they see a shiny new object and that's what they want, they don't care.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty savage.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you had anybody in your department commit suicide? If it's too personal, you don't have to answer.
Not while I was there. Before I joined, I think 4 years before I joined, they had a guy go off into the woods and hang himself. I never really asked about that one too much. But we've had neighboring departments, some guys off themselves from there. So it has hit our community, just not directly in the department.
Just next time you hear about stuff like that, just do some basic inquiries and see if there's like, divorce.
What the common factor? It's almost always divorce, I'm sure. That's what a lot of the male suicides that I've responded to have been.
Yeah. I mean, one of the ones that really bothers me the most, and this happened while I was on Fort Lewis. There was this master sergeant, great dude. One of those guys who go to bat for you, always had great advice.
Mm-hmm.
And he was literally 3 or 4 months away from retiring. Once he dropped his retirement packet, his wife wanted to divorce him, and she was going to get half his pension and all that.
Of course. Yeah.
And
too calculated.
Yeah, they wound up pulling him out of a local body of water. He had drowned fishing, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his blood alcohol was like 1.5 times that.
Yeah, through the roof. Absolutely.
Yeah, through the roof. So they said it was an accident, but who knows what happened.
Yeah, you get dark thoughts while you're out there.
Yeah, you keep drinking and you lose. Fall off the boat.
Yeah.
You don't drink and swim. That's why it's in my safety briefing. It doesn't work out too well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had other soldiers, like this one E6 got hit with a divorce, drove his crotch rocket into a viaduct at north of 150 miles an hour.
Mm.
That one was a bad one.
Yeah.
And it's all around. All I'm saying is this. Is we're going to have to take some serious steps to try to fix this, because this is going to wind up turning into something incredibly bad if we can't.
It's honestly already bad. It's
yeah.
You've got a massive imbalance as far as who is expected to take the responsibility for everything bad.
Uh-huh.
And then you have the other side who's just assumed to be the victim or assumed to be the weak one that needs protecting all the time. And that's not always the case. That's often not the case.
Yeah. Listen, I am not a fan of any of that bullshit.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Popp for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.